Let me give you a what if. Over the last 8-10 years or so, we've seen cataclysmic events occur. We've seen 9/11. We've seen earthquakes in Pakistan. We've seen volcanoes. We've seen hurricane destruction of New Orleans and earthquakes happening in China. All of this activity is happening in that ring around the world that is the empty quarter, known as, within insider circles, the empty quarter. That space of 45 degrees from the 8th parallel, Costa Rica, to the 53rd parallel, James Bay in the north, with the exception of a part of Ontario, which is known as the visor on the cap. If you think about the circular cap worn by the Pope, by rabbis, the 45 degrees remaining in the northern hemisphere will include the space from the 53rd degree to the 90th degree, which is above us, and the 8 degrees from Costa Rica down to the equator below us. And of course, the rest of the southern hemisphere is scheduled to stay on for 1,000 more years. So if you read mythology, the mythology of India, the mythology of Japan, the mythology of Persia, mythology of Egypt, mythology of Rome, and the Scandinavian mythology, you will find that the plan for what is about to occur is written as stories in the mythology. The plan is always identified by a capital letter E, which has 3 and 1 holding it all together. So you have the corporations, and you have the government, and in the middle you have the media, and over on the side you have religion, which holds it all together, the capital letter E. And if you notice these days, the capital letter E is being shown on an angle. Something is about to knock it over on its side. Global warming is what they call it. But the plan to destroy this area of the northern hemisphere has been in place for thousands of years. The Norse mythology of Scandinavia, a country in Germany, Holland, Belgium, call this Ragnarok, Agnarok, Magnarok, Blackwater, and everything I have deciphered leads me to believe that this is what is about to happen. 3 events. Anytime now, from the year 2008, as we enter the age of Aquarius, water contained in containers is the symbolism. And the next coming of Halley's Comet, 2062, it comes every 75 years, which is to give you a hint about the number they're talking about in reverse and upside down is the omega number, and it's 75 if looked at in one direction and turn it around, it looks like 57. And this is what this story is all about. You have basically 3 organizations that have been set up in order to strip you of everything you have. The front organization is where you get your job, your transnational corporation. By transferring all of the value onto an international stock market, it allows people from outside your country to come in and scoop up everything that's on the stock market and bring it back. And of course, before the scooping is done, then crisis must be brought about in order to cause the value of the stock market to drop. And nothing is better than a banking crisis. During Reagan's years, they basically stripped the savings and loans. And now, during George Bush's period, they're basically stripping the value of the stock market. One more cataclysmic event in the United States, and the value of the shares in the United States will drop to almost nothing. And it's being prepared for. You are living in a time called the Age of Aquarius. You've lived through the passage. That's why the word pass was included in this year's Rose Bowl parade. The passport to world's festivals. Estival, the Eastern Valleys, is basically what it means. Enter the pass age. Since 1998-99, you've seen the economy of the United States being totally undermined by technology transfer outside the country. Which means when you go, the technology you developed in the United States will continue to operate because the property will be somewhere else. How many people on the stock market front for other people who front for other people who front for other people, and the transfer of real property is on its way out. called peas in a pod by the advertising media and by podcasts that come out of an iPod. And the pea in the pod is significant because everything this plan has in mind refers to the word green. And in their language, it means heal. Ici. Ici is French for heal. Medici. Green. It's the green revolution that the politicians want you to adopt. You're willing their will when you say you want change and are not more specific about what change it is you're looking for. They have change in mind for you, but it has nothing to do with the change you're expecting. What it has to do with is your destruction. The mining industry is involved, particularly the coal mining, and you've heard of all the problems with coal mining over the last few years. You've heard about how a bridge in Minnesota at one end lifted up, moved sideways, and dropped down again, and the whole bridge collapsed. That's because something is going on underneath. And the something going on underneath can only be explained if you follow a lot of the activity in the coal mining industry. Michigan is in mortal danger. Michigan, as you know, has a peninsula leading into the Great Lakes. Another peninsula coming down from further north into the Great Lakes. That used to be an area called the Great Sea at the time of the melting of the glaciers. Agassiz, Great Sea. CZ, top, is part of the cove. And this Great Sea needs to be reconstructed again. So you've had mining for copper in Lake Michigan there. You've had salt mines emptied out under Detroit. You have iron mines at Duluth, Minnesota. All of that leaves spaces underground that once something cataclysmic occurs, everything will collapse. And what you will have happen is basically an induced nova. The nova basically means that everything starts churning. It falls into holes, it mixes in with the water, and it only lasts for a limited period of time, but everything in its path of this nova is destroyed. Mountains can topple. Lakes mix in. It's coal seams across America, from Lake Superior all across the north and then down into Salt Lake City, Utah, and below, all the way to Yuma, bringing with it all of the land above it and all of the water that is today the Great Lakes, the big lakes in Manitoba, the artificial movement of water from the reservoirs in Saskatchewan. Whole area across the United States, above Costa Rica and Central America, all the way up to the 53rd parallel, is basically 2 degrees parallel below the Alaskan Panhandle on the BC border. The collapse of the United States in this fashion, along with the destruction of the oceanfront property in the east on the Atlantic, on the west in the Pacific, and the culmination of the eastern side sending tsunamis up into the Gulf of Mexico will destroy populations on the coast. An international space station run by so-called tourists who've been up to take their training and see how things are over the last few years on Russian spacecraft. $20 million apiece. Sent back to man the International Space Station. Controlling the Hubble telescope. Reversing it and using it as an amplifier of light, can be focused on a celestial body, whether it be a comet or the moon or what have you, and create a supernova, causing rocks to fall from the sky. Try to imagine what the United States would look like. And when I say the United States, I don't limit it to the United States. It's the entire developed area of the Northern Hemisphere, starting at one end with Japan, China, coming in to all of the countries in the middle, including India, Egypt, all of Europe, England, with the exception of everything above the 53rd parallel. Southern Canada, the United States, Mexico, Nicaragua, many of the Central American countries above Costa Rica. All of that is scheduled to be destroyed as things are moved from one place to the other. And the period in time is now. 2008, bottom line, 2062, top line. 3 events. Rocks from the sky, a nova creating fire and brimstone from below, and floods. And once it's all over, Ragnarok says that a number of people will be brought to Valhalla. Valhalla is exactly where I'm sitting right now, in the spur, which is the boot of Ontario. But it's also the visor on the cap that will remain in the north, because this is the Canadian shield. And it says in the mythology that the place will be protected by shields.